Hello everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome all of you, right? Today we are here for our final session in the special descriptive series, which was for all the RBI Grade B aspirants to help you for your phase 2 paper, specifically in terms of your descriptive answers. So on this note, today we are going to be seeing management, right? Now, before we move forward, there is this guidebook, right? So if you haven't had a look at the PYQs yet, or you want a strategy before your exam, right? Then you can download this guidebook. The link for the same will be in the description box below. So basically, now as the exam's approaching, right? And we have already covered the descriptive series a lot in terms of all the other subjects. Today we are just going to wrap it up in terms of management, right? And basically this is going to be our last session, and then you are straight up for your exams. So on this note, without wasting any further time, let us move forward and have a look at the first question for the day, which is what is corporate governance, and define its needs and principles. So basically this is from your corporate governance chapter, and we have two parts of the question. Now in my intro, what am I supposed to write? If let's brainstorm. You guys give me your ideas, whatever you think should be a part of this answer, and let me know in the chat, right? So basically, by now you must have an idea how we are supposed to start our answer with an intro. So let us have a try, right? So in our intro, my first statement must be what? I straight away have to define what is corporate governance as asked in the question. Simple, right? So what do we write about corporate governance? Can I see your answers in the chat, please? What are we supposed to write? What exactly is corporate governance? Its definition that, it's certain rules, certain practices, certain regulations which a company has to abide by. Why? Because a company is accountable to its stakeholders to ensure that these stakeholders are, fine. They are not getting misled by the company, to ensure that the company is doing everything in the interest of these stakeholders. We have corporate governance principles, right? So that is what we have to mention in the intro in terms of what is corporate governance. And then followed by, we have to write its needs and principles. So this is my second part of the question. So in the introduction, I have to mention certain needs. Certain needs such as what? Why do I require corporate governance? Can I get certain answers for this? What is the need of corporate governance? The need can basically be what? Firstly, prevention of frauds, right? Ensure that frauds are not taking place in the organization. What more can be there? Accountability. What else? What other points can I write? Keywords. It can be transparency, right? So basically, I have to mention certain points like this in terms of the need of corporate governance, followed by the principles. Now, in terms of principles, obviously, we are not going to define the principles in the intro. Just give a basic crux that, there are certain principles of corporate governance which must be followed, etc., etc. Now, this introduction, can somebody tell me what will be the word limit for this introduction? When I say it's supposed to be concise, can somebody tell me what exactly is the word limit supposed to be for this answer? Can I get certain answers, please? Do we remember? Basically, when I say concise, it was supposed to be 10 to 12% of your total word limit. So if the answer is 400 words, then this intro must not exceed how many words? 40 words, right? Now let us come to the body. In the body, what I have to do is, I have to explain everything in depth now. So I know what is corporate governance. I have written in the intro. We have to elaborate on it a bit, right? Maybe you can come up with certain instance where such corporate governance was required. Let's say we take the example of the Satyam scandal, right? Or, we take the example of any such fraud which has happened, and therefore with that example, with that case study, I try to explain why exactly is corporate governance required. So this is something we can do in the body. Plus, what more I have to write? I have to divide the body into two more parts. One part is going to be the need of corporate governance, wherein I have to mention this, accountability, transparency, etc. I have to give their, brief idea. Why is it required? If any examples for the same we can. Plus, what more have I supposed to? It is your principles. Now, this is the part wherein the answer is to be more focused on. Why? Because principle, we have multiple very, very important principles of corporate governance, and that is something we will have to mention. right? So what are the principles? Does anybody know the principles of corporate governance? Can I see the answers in the charts? If yes, any? Basically, when I talk about the principles, I will have to write the interest of the stakeholders, right? I have to keep a check on the majority and the minority stakeholders, that everybody has, sort of an equal treatment. Then we have the accountability, the responsibilities of the board, and there are multiple principles for the same. With each, I can have certain examples. So this is what is, how we are supposed to get to this answer. Now let us move forward and have a look at its mind map. Basically, if we see this, what is my intro? My introduction is simply this, ki dekho, what is corporate governance? Systems of rules, process, regulations, practices, etc., by which, the company is controlled and directed for what? Interest of the stakeholders. Very essential. What is the need of corporate governance? It helps in transparency, trust, etc., and certain principles are there which helps us maintain corporate governance in a better manner. And let's say you know some example, then you can give this example, or we can also put this example in your body straight away, right? Now let us come to our body. In the body, what are we supposed to write or mention? In the body, basically, we have two parts. First, what exactly is the need of corporate governance, right? Now, when we talk about the need of corporate governance, I need it for a separation of the ownership from the manager, right? So that we have the agency theory, meaning that, the owners are separate, the management is separate. So the management is supposed to work for the benefit of the owners of the company. Now, this is why corporate governance is required, so that we can ensure that the management is actually accountable, actually works in benefit for these owners, right? Then, in terms of, building credibility, public relations, and trust everywhere. Then investor protection, the shareholders, the investors, they are putting their money in your company. Their rights must be protected, followed by foreign investments, accountability, banks, institutions, and globalization. Basically, this is my need part of it. Then I have to mention the principles, very essential for this answer. First principle is rights and equitable treatment. So all shareholders, be majority, be minority, everybody must be treated equally. That is something I have to mention. Plus interest of other stakeholders. Okay, it's not just the shareholder, but other stakeholders too are, to be, responsible for, right? You as the management are responsible for these other stakeholders too. Other stakeholders like the customers, government, public, etc. Then the roles and responsibility the board has, followed by having an integral and ethical behavior. Don't do frauds or wrongdoings. Disclose everything, be transparent about your reportings, eco-friendly policy, CSR activity. So basically, I have to mention all these things in my principles. And in the body, wherever I can, wherever possible, I have to add on certain examples, right? Now, what will be my conclusion? Basically, I have to say, why is corporate governance essential? So, what will it do? Create value for everybody, be it your shareholder, employee, investor, etc., meaning all the stakeholders in total. And it will lead to transparency, better accountability, higher investor trust, and a final profitable, sustainable growth leading to long-term success. So basically, this is how we are supposed to be setting up the answer. Now let us move forward and have a look at the model answer. When we have a look at this answer, my intro is, simply what? I'm defining corporate governance and saying its requirement, why, it's needed because of, various aspects which we have already discussed in the crux, in the keywords. Then we move on to the body. In the body, I am explaining all the keywords, all the different needs, why we need a separate management and owner scenario, right? How we are going to go for credible PR relations and, credibility, trust. How we'll protect our investors. In terms of foreign investments, how are we supposed to, ensure that corporate governance is properly in place. Followed by financial reporting. I am accountable to my stakeholders and shareholders. So I have to properly, report my finances and, financial reportings, everything, standards must be met. Then the banks and financial institutions, followed by globalization, right? So this is my need part of the answer. This part is covered. Now I have to write the principles. What are the principles? This is where the answer must be given more importance to. Why? Because principles are very, very essential in terms of corporate governance, right? Now, first is rights and equitable treatment, meaning all the shareholders must be treated equally. Be you a majority shareholder, be you a minority shareholder, right? So, this is something I have to mention, plus an example if we can, followed by interest of other stakeholders. Key, it's not just shareholders but also the other stakeholders, right? The creditors, suppliers, customers, etc., to whom I am responsible to. So herein we can give an example of CSR for the society, for the community, right? Wherein I'm considering the interest of these other stakeholders, followed by the role and responsibilities of the board. Herein, what am I doing? In case of roles and responsibilities of the board, what am I doing? Basically, can I get certain answers? Do you guys, can you think of what exactly are we writing here? Basically, the board has the role and the responsibility to work in the interest of the shareholders and the stakeholders, right? So this is what it's supposed to be happening. Then we have integrity and ethical behavior. Okay, don't do frauds, be, having an ethical sort of a behavior, do the right things. And herein we can also give the example of the posh policies, right? Basically, no sexual harassment, having a good workplace environment. So this is also part of ethical behavior, followed by disclosure and transparency, that you must be transparent, disclose everything. Taking loans, disclose it, or having investments, disclose those things, because that is essential for the stakeholders to make decisions, right? And eco-friendly policies, obviously, because you are taking so many resources from the environment, you have to do something back for the environment too. So eco-friendly goods, eco-friendly policies. And finally, we go for the conclusion here. Conclusion mein what am I doing is just synthesize, paraphrase the entire thing, and therefore what we have to do is give an optimistic solution that you are going to have to go for good positive corporate governance norms, and these are essential, and this is how we are supposed to write this answer. Now let us move forward. Our next question is, what is the difference between trait and behavior theories of leadership? So basically this is from your leadership part, right? Trait theories and behavior theories. So what will be my intro? There must be a basic intro for what are trait theories, right? And a basic intro for what are behavior theories, plus any name of theorists. If you know, under trait theory I can mention Gordon Allport. Under behavior theories I can mention Blake Mouton, or any other behavior theory you want to write. So therefore, in the intro I will have to first explain what these two theories are, and that is what is going to be my introduction to this answer. Again, concise, 10 to 12% of the word limit, so 60 words max. Then we get to my body. In the body, I will have to go for differentiation points. Now, when we talk about differentiation, the way we do it is first figure out a point. That is, let's say the point of difference for this answer is in terms of the model, right? Let's say the model, what is it based on? So in that case, first, let's say I'll write about trait theory. This is the characteristics, the traits of the person are what makes them a leader. Then I will mention about behavior theories. The leadership is something which we are understanding in terms of how different people are behaving. So different leaders will have a different behavior, etc., etc. And therefore, give an example if possible. So this is how we are supposed to write this in case of a difference. Pick one point of difference, answer for trait, answer for behavior, and if any example possible. This is the framework, right? What more can we write? The different types. Trait theory has Gordon Allport, behavior theories have Blake Mouton, the other theories like Levine and etc. What is the main crux of it? Trait theory says a leader is sort of having these characteristics with them, and they won't become a leader through any other experience from life. Just because of the characteristics, they are a leader. Behavior theory is not saying the same, right? So basically these are the multiple points of differences which we are supposed to write, and then we'll get to the conclusion. What am I supposed to write in the conclusion here? Can somebody tell me what am I supposed to write in the conclusion? I need an optimistic solution. What sort of solution am I supposed to give? I just did the differentiation between two theories. Now, what can be an optimistic solution? Can you guess? Can you try? Anybody? Yes. Basically, when we talk about the conclusion, what can we write? It's, a very, very good conclusion for this can be that, a leader has to change his leadership styles based on the situation, right? So therefore, we cannot say either one of the theories are best, but a mix of the situation along with the leadership style works, right? So therefore, that is a good conclusion we can give. And let us now have a look at the mind map then. So my intro is basically what is trait theory, right? And what is behavioral theory saying. Plus, if you wish to give, we can write certain key features, just the keywords of the key features, not explaining the key features. When we move on to the body, that is when I start explaining the features. Okay, देखो, trait theory has these features, right? Certain traits, these are innate qualities you are born with. And behavior theories have certain key features which you can learn, your behavior, how you're adapting. And then we come to the point of difference. In the point of difference, we'll figure out the points, right? Is it in terms of the foundation, like what is the basic, what is the theory based on? Are these flexible in nature? Are we developing any leaderships? Or is there any situational relevance? So basically we differentiate on these parameters, both the theories, and then finally give a conclusion. What conclusion? Key. Both theories have a different crux. Both are important. The most effective is when we go for a situational sort of a scenario wherein we adapt the most appropriate behavior for that scenario. And this is your optimistic solution, how we are supposed to frame this answer. So let us have a look at the model answer then. So my intro. My intro is basically nothing but trait theory is what saying, and behavior theory is saying what, and how these two theories help in leadership effectiveness. Simple. Then I come to what is trait theory. I explain the concept, and we can also mention here the name of any theorists if you want. For trait theory, we can mention Gordon Allport, right? Or if you wish to mention the names, any other person, whoever has contributed to the same, you can. Then we'll mention certain key features for this trait theory. Then we move on to the behavior theory. Again, any name of theorists, if we can explain the crux of behavior theory, that we have two different behaviors, either you're task oriented or you're people oriented. Then we explain the key features of the behavior theory, followed by the differences. This is where we come to the differences. So first select a point of difference, then say what is trait theory saying, what is behavior theory saying. Flexibility, trait theory followed by behavior. Same way, we follow this framework. Clearly differentiate between these two theories, and then what we have to do is finally give a conclusion wherein we say that both theories have a different crux. At the end result, my answer should end how optimistic way is that integrated approach based, to ensure that everybody is doing what? You are also learning certain traits to be a leader, plus you also have the natural qualities. Both these things together, plus being adaptable to the scenario, makes it the best. So this is how we are supposed to conclude the answer, and therefore we have an optimistic solution, right? Now, coming to the final question for the special descriptive series, it's from ethics. What is a code of conduct and how it is implemented in an organization? So when we talk about a code of conduct, my intro is simply, the question, what is a code of conduct? So I have to explain. Code of conduct is what? Let's say formal rules, something which has been, asked for in the organization. This is what you have to follow, come on time, dress like this. Certain codes of conducts which you might have. So that is your basic introduction, simple. And then what we have to do is, how is it implemented in an organization? This is the body part of it, right? So how can we implement it? How can I implement it? Let's say having a good leader, right? A proper leader. Good leadership will help you implement code of conduct. Good communication, right? How else can we implement a code of conduct? Let's say sort of incentives or some sort of, bonuses or some welfare activities related to following that code of conduct, or some sort of, praise up, status sort of a scenario which you can get if you follow these rules. So basically, we mention how it can be implemented. And then what you have to do is give a conclusion. What will we write in the conclusion? That having a code of conduct will do what? The crux is that I want to increase the ethical behavior in the organization, that everybody is behaving in an ethical manner. So that is why I'm implementing a code of conduct. And this is how I will conclude my answer. So if we have a look at the mind map, my introduction is basically what? Okay. What is a code of conduct? It is an ethical guideline, certain rules, practices, which will define the expected behavior. Okay, this is right, this is what you're supposed to do. It will guide decisions, ensure compliance, etc. And what will it ensure and help in? Building trust, integrity, positive culture, legal compliance, and reputation, right? This is your introduction, very good. Then we come to our body. Body mein what are we supposed to write? Why do I need a code of conduct? That is something I have to explain, right? So it's for the ethical guidance purpose we write it. And internal cohesion, meaning everybody inside the organization is working properly in a cohesive manner, collaborating well. And then we have to come to the implementation part, essential. So a good leader, communication training, integration with policies, let's say, review updates, any sort of monitoring, enforcement, accountability. So I write all these things in terms of your implementation, how we can implement a good code of conduct. And finally, a conclusion. What will happen because of this code of conduct? Higher ethical behavior, integrity, trust, increasing positive work culture, and therefore a good organization. This is basically your mind map. So let us have a look at the answer now. This part is your intro. In your intro, I have just written what Keith's ethical guidelines. I explains what is a code of conduct and why is it essential, because it will foster trust, promote culture, etc. Then we come to the body. In the body, what I have to write is firstly, what is the requirement of this code of conduct? Ethical guidelines, internal question, obviously. And then my second part of the answer was implementation. So how will I implement it? Through these following ways. Commitment of the leader, communication and training, integration, regular review updates, and monitoring reporting. Herein, in this part, wherever we can give certain examples, we should. Leadership commitment, let us pick an example of a good leader, right? And how that leader helped in promoting a code of conduct and ethical behavior in their organization. Communication and training, how good communication is helpful, right? How certain policies and procedures in certain organization aligns with a good ethical code of conduct. So basically, this is what I'm supposed to write. And finally, your conclusion. Conclusion is going to be what? Conclusion is going to be in relation to basically, the entirety of how code of conduct is essential, how it maintains ethical behavior, promotes the culture, etc. And very, very essential is that I have to write having an ethical behavior, having that code of conduct will increase the ethical behavior, will have a long-term success, a positive impact. So an optimistic solution, and this is how we can end this answer, conclude this answer, and this would fetch you good marks, right? So basically, this is all in terms of our special descriptive series. With this, we are going to wrap up the series today. So if there are any doubts or queries, you can, ask in the chat. That would be all from my end, basically. I wish you all luck for your exams. Pray in your phase 2 goes well, right? And everybody will be able to do good in the exams. I hope that for all of you. So thank you all. If there are no questions, then this is Deepika signing off.